Hello and welcome to another episode of Cake Fight Presents The Making of Kaleidoscope. I'm writer, director, producer Paige Feldman, and this week, as every week, I'm taking you inside my process of making my debut feature film. We're going from idea to premiere in real time. So last week I did a Write With Me video where you were either writing alongside me, listening to the playlist that I made, that I curated, or watching me write. And what I was writing was my outline for Kaleidoscope. I was making it reader-friendly for anybody who hasn't spent as much time with the story stuck inside their head as I have, which is basically anyone except for me. And then I sent that outline off to my writing group. And right before I left for Thanksgiving, I spent a whole wonderful week with my family in St. Louis, including my 90-year-old grandma, who we celebrated her birthday. My aunt and my uncle and my cousins came in and surprised her, which was fantastic. But right before I left for all that celebration, I had a meeting with my writing group, and they gave me some wonderful notes on this outline. And one of these notes was so wonderful, and I'm not being snide or sarcastic here. I love these kinds of notes. It was so wonderful that it exposed a huge weak point in the story. I'm really grateful for the note, but also I have a huge foundational problem now that I need to fix, and I am sorting through the rubble of this character's motivations, and oh my gosh. So before we get too much into it, let's just roll the titles, and then when we get back, I can tell you about this whole mess. It's really a mess. Y'all are ready to hear about this whole mess. So it all started with a note from my friend Erin, who is a member of my writing group. And instead of telling you what he said, I'm just going to show you.
What I was kind of missing a little bit from the outline was like, what about this night that like keeps getting repeated is sort of important thematically to them, to Jonah and Lee. As in, like, I was thinking about other time loop stories, and so like Groundhog Day, Bill Murray's got to like improve himself, and Palm Springs, they like have to outsmart like the thing that's happening, and Russian Doll, they're like breaking cycles of addiction and stuff. And it just kind of felt like you could be maybe a little bit more specific with what they're overcoming, because yes, like Jonah is learning to kind of open, be himself more, and like I'm not saying they're not learning things, it's just why is this the way that they're learning those things, I guess.
I have an answer for this, and you tell me if it's not satisfying.
Okay.
So the idea is that this is the worst night of both of their lives, and it's because it's the night that led to changes. It's the one night where if they could change something, they would.
Mm-hmm.
And so for Jonah, it's that he didn't, like, if he did better comedy, he did something that wasn't just for his friends. And then if he did, he wouldn't have made Devin leave. And then he wouldn't have gotten that panic attack on the road thinking about how terribly he did and gotten into that car accident and then had the stage fright and been, 10 steps backward from where he was. And for Lee, it was, she wouldn't have gotten into, like, picked this fight with Devin, and it wouldn't have tipped him to break up with her. And then she would have the path to the successful life that she thinks that she wants. And then the way that this ties in thematically is that this time loop doesn't affect the future in any way. It doesn't affect the present. They're going back to the past to try to change it, but they cannot. Mm-hmm. And so they have to learn how to make changes in their present lives that satisfy them and make them happy and live with the lot that they are with.
Right. Okay.
So that's where I am with that. Does that feel satisfying, or does that come through?
I guess I don't know. I feel like it's close. In my head, like I'm struggling to kind of figure out what is like, missing for me. But it's almost just I guess maybe it would like land better for me personally, at least, if their current lives were more messed up because of this night. If this really was like I don't know, more of a turning point in some ways, because Lee breaking up with Devin, like it didn't feel that devastating to her because he was kind of like an ass, and in the way that he's presented later. So it felt like, yes, like a car accident is bad, but like, Devin doesn't die. Like if Devin dies and, Lee is grieving and she becomes an addict or something, like, I mean, like this is maybe too much, but
yeah,
I'm just saying like,
that is too much, but yes,
right.
I understand.
But yeah, but I feel like that would tie it in better.
Right. So at first I thought, well, I mean, come on, Aaron, like obviously it's a terrible night because Lee's boyfriend almost died and she broke up with him right before it. But I mean, he has a point. The reason why it blows up my outline so much is because it is a premise upon which this whole idea is based. Jonah and Lee reliving the worst night of both of their lives and going through the same emotional trauma and rising above it again, without Lee actually having some form of emotional trauma, without her being actually impacted by this night, the story doesn't hit, and the romance doesn't hit, and the parallelisms don't hit. I mean, this is a huge problem, and I don't have a solution. Initially, in a previous iteration of Kaleidoscope, this night was the worst of Lee's life, and this was when the story was a young adult novel set in a high school. After the accident, decided to break up with Devin while he was an amputee. And her friends thought that that was a cruel move, but Devin was being a jerk to her. Lee didn't want to deal with it. But then all of her friends, all of Lee's friends, abandoned her and sided with Devin. And so she had no friends. And so her desire was to go back to this night to fix things, to make it so he didn't get into the accident. So she would never, or at the very least, make it so she could never break up with him. So she'd have her friends and have her stability. But in this more adult version of the story, I don't want to turn Devin's accident into a lesson for Lee. I also don't feel as if breakups as adults are as big of a deal unless there's something hugely problematic about one person within the relationship. That idea of Lee being very problematic or Devin being very problematic brings this story into a space that I don't want to necessarily go, especially because it's a romantic comedy and Lee and Jonah should be the focus, not Lee and Devin. So I stripped away all of that conflict. Lee just has a terrible night because she had a fight with her boyfriend, she broke up with him, and then he gets into a car accident. Maybe she wishes that things could have been different, but this isn't necessarily the worst night of her life anymore. And it needs to be in order for the whole story to hit. So after I got this note and realized how important it was, I decided on Saturday, when I had some time over the Thanksgiving holiday, went and sat at my parents' kitchen counter and turned on some football. The Iron Bowl was on. It was a great game. Sat down and did my brainstorming technique. If you missed that, I'll put a link up here so you can look at it, learn what it's about, and eventually will help me solve my problems, though. You'll see. I'm not exactly too close to a solution right now, but I brainstormed, I watched some football, and at the end I had a list of 20 things to answer the question, why is Lee's life messed up because of the party? And there are 8 of them that are circled or starred that I think I could explore more. So here they are. Number 4, and remember, numbers 1 through 5 typically are the most obvious solutions, and this one definitely is that Lee feels she should have been driving and has survivor's guilt. This one is definitely reasonable and something I should consider. It's also very generic. Oh, I wish I had been driving. There's nothing specific about her character here that comes to the forefront when I look at this. And I think there might be something about survivor's guilt that could connect nicely to Jonah's mental health angle, to his panic attacks, if I can find something specific to Lee. But if not, I'll leave it. So number 6, Lee lost all her friends. And this is harkening back to when this was a young adult novel. And Lee losing a complete support system would be devastating. But again, this is about Lee and Jonah, not Lee and her friends. So I actually think I'll cross this one off. Hey, talking things out helps. Next, there's 3 that connect and can be combined into one answer. So I'm going to go through these together. They're 11, 12, and 13. Lee had a life plan that went awry, a strict to-do list. Wants to get married by 35 or something. Wants to buy a house by 40, have her first kid by 37. Secondly, Lee had a great life, and this is the first hardship she experienced. Now, this is a really freaking cop-out here, that the reason that this is the worst night of Lee's life is because Lee's had a really charmed life. I mean, something worth considering, but it also kind of feels like saying, no, this problem doesn't matter. I'm gonna bury my head in the sand. We'll be fine. Finally, Lee grieves the life she lost, meaning the life that she might have envisioned with Devin. That idea is interesting, and I want to explore that more. The fact that she might, she had all of these grand plans, and now she feels she's starting from square one and is 33 years old. Which, I've been there. It's rough. Now number 14. Lee was living some sort of lie, and Devin exposed it before the accident. I love this idea, because then the party really would be the worst night of her life. And if she could go back and change it and no one ever hears the lie, then she's saved. But everyone will have heard the lie, and she has to learn to deal with it. Now what this lie is, I'm not sure, and that's why it's circled, because I need to figure that out. But number 16, Lee exposed her friend's infidelities in a fit of pique. Again, this is similar to 14, where it's Lee said something she can't take back and now wishes she could. And then maybe with number 6, she lost all her friends. Finally, I kind of had 21 ideas, because at the very end I had another one, which is Lee throws a fit at Devin about Devin and Barb. Barb being this friend that is really into Devin but won't go after him because Lee's her friend, and I'm not quite sure where that fits in, but I like the idea of Lee, again, in a fit of pique, exposing her friend's infidelities, maybe making some comment about Devin and Barb that brings them together. I have some ideas, but nothing feels clear, nothing feels obvious, nothing feels exciting to me. After I made this list for Lee, I figured, well, let's double check. Let's make sure that Jonah is set about how his life was messed up because of the party. Watched more football. Ooh. Wrote down more ideas, and I came up with 20 things pretty easily. 3 of them I put X's next to because I just don't want to incorporate them. 2 of them I put stars next to because I want to potentially incorporate them more into the story. But all of them, all 17 of them that I didn't X out, are things that I actually already have in the outline. So Jonah's life is plenty messed up because of this party. He has writer's block. He's the joke in his family. He freaks out around his friends because they expect him to be funny and he can't perform. There's so much about that accident and the party that have upended Jonah's life. I need to find this balance for Lee. So before I started recording here for you today and rehashing everything I did on Saturday over the Thanksgiving weekend, I reread Jonah's list and Lee's list. And Jonah's list is so specific to all of his goals, whereas Lee's list is a list of things that potentially could have happened at the party to make life miserable for her. And seeing that contrast, seeing the ideas that piqued my interest as far as what is going to make Lee's life miserable, it made me realize I need to figure out what Lee's ideal life is, or what it was, and how it's been ruined. Because Jonah's is so clear. His ideal life was being a stand-up comedian, being able to perform, being beloved by his friends and his brother especially. And then he gets into a car accident after having a terrible stand-up routine. And not only is he injured, not only is he mentally strained, but that mental strain makes it so that he isn't able to perform anymore. He can't work on being funny anymore. He is just paralyzed out of the life that he wished he had. And that can be tied specifically to the party. So what I need to find for Lee is the same thing that I have organically found for Jonah. And that is an event of the party that is specifically tied to Lee's own wants and desires that creates a situation where those desires are untenable for her. It's all interesting. So that... Right, so... You guys, honestly, I'm having such a hard time recording this video because I don't know what I'm going to do next. I've painted myself into a bit of a corner here with Lee because the thing she wants most, to be a nature photographer, is just... like, she doesn't want to admit it. So I can't have her dreams of being a nature photographer blow up. I can't use this goal situation in the same way I use Jonah's. And her desire to have a lovely corporate job, how can Devon's accident create a situation where she can't have that job? And I'm not going to have Lee go and get drunk and do drunk karaoke because part of her whole character is how she is so reserved, and being with Jonah helps her open up and be vulnerable. And it's really difficult writing an Ice Queen. This is such an important thing I need to figure out before I start writing. And I'm just stuck. I need to do some more brainstorming, but I don't know what questions to ask. Is it, what are Lee's goals? Is it, what sorts of... Is it about her photography? Is it trying to figure out where she is with that in the beginning of the... I don't know. I might need to do just some free association writing and figure it out. That might be the best solution. I'm gonna try that, and hopefully I'll come up with a solution. I would love to end this video on a beautiful button of, well, here's the solution I found and here's where it's going next. But to be frank, I don't even know. Hopefully next week I will have a solution and a new draft of the outline, because December 16th, my day to start drafting, is rapidly approaching. And I know I have some other issues in this story that my writing group again pointed out, but I can't even go there until I figure out what Lee's ish is. Thank y'all so much for watching. I appreciate you. Thank you for sticking with me while my writing group broke my brain. And I'll be back. I can't talk. I'll be back next week with more about the making of Kaleidoscope.